And happy Monday to you. They're playing my song. Welcome to the interview room. Man, have we got a show for you tonight. Amazing stuff. Those of you who have been with me for a while remember probably Doug McGregor. His info's down below. Get over and subscribe to his channel while you got a chance right now, because you're going to be blown away. This guy's amazing. We love him here. And of course, we got John Lamb, Bob Gilliam, and Dr. Gary Bricotto. We got quite the panel tonight. So put your seatbelts on and tell us where you're at. Gary keeps knocking himself off. Must be brain damage.
Whiplash.
Well, welcome to the interview room. We're grateful that you're here. John, good to see you.
It's wonderful to be here. I'm actually really eager to hear Doug's information, and I want to thank your mods and your all of your people that are watching. And remember, hit the like button.
Absolutely, and the subscribe button. Doug McGregor, welcome back, my friend. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what your channel is and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I'm a geographic profiler. That's my primary focus, and I work for law enforcement, families, the media, nonprofits, and I work all kinds of cases. And if you're unfamiliar with geographic profiling, it's basically on the behavioral analysis side, and it's looking at the spatial, temporal, environmental, and geographic elements of human behavior, offender behavior, victimology, crime scene analysis.
Awesome.
And and my socials. Yes, thank you for posting that. I have all my socials are at the Geo Profiler. You can find me all over the place with that.
And you work for an investigative service also. Tell everybody about that company.
I do. IRIS Investigative Services. It stands for Incident Response and Investigative Strategies. Sorry, and we're out of. I work for them. I contract for them out of Idaho. We have a group of 9 of us, and we work all types of cases. As I mentioned, we have lots of different skill sets within our group. And you can find our website at iris in investigativestrategies.com. And yeah, so if you're looking for assistance on any case, you can contact us through there.
Fantastic. I will also link them. I don't know what's going on with Gary, but as soon as he comes in, it disappears.
He just sent me a text. He's got to update Google. He's having some issues, but he's going to try and be on here in a minute.
Yeah, there you go. And thank you, Doug. Sorry, Gary. He's got a 10-pound brain, and every once in a while it malfunctions. And we love him to death here, but he's having some technical issues. Bob, welcome to the show tonight. Remind everybody who you are. We got already about 3,400 people in here and growing, so it should be a good evening.
Well, thanks for having me back, Chris. I know Karen's lurking in the background somewhere. Shout out to her and your awesome mods. Yes, absolutely. So anyway, good to be back. My name's Bob Gilliam. I'm a retired police officer. I spent 36 years on the job in a number of areas in law enforcement, including many years as a detective. Later on, I supervised a couple of detective units. And I ended my career as an undersheriff, and I'm also a graduate of Session 249 of the FBI National Academy.
And I see your brick up there on your safe.
Absolutely, the yellow brick road. If you don't know what that is, folks, look it up. You can Google it, and you'll see. There
it is. There it is. And also, John, I forgot to tell everybody about your books and introduce your law enforcement background.
I've got over 3 decades in law enforcement. I was a homicide detective for a number of years. I should have received hazardous duty pay for supervising Chris. I was a hostage negotiator. Now I'm an author, and we just for those of you who have bought my books, thank you. Service with a Sneer and Beach Blanket Bedlam. We just finished final formatting and some final minor rewrites on Bring Out Your Dead, and that should be coming out soon. So, in fact, maybe your next show, Chris, I'll send you the image of the book cover. But it's a delight to be here, and again, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and love the hazardous pay. Josh, in the lower right-hand corner, it's great to see you, my buddy, and there he is, the doctor himself. The doc is back. Let me put you in the middle. Josh, tell everybody a little bit about who you are and your channel.
Yeah, my name is Josh Diaz. I'm a podcaster, producer. I make documentaries. I host a wide variety of shows here on YouTube. Also have a documentary coming out about the disappearance of Karen Mitchell. Actually comes out on Halloween. And I do frequent shows with Dr. Gary. John comes on as well, Bob, Chris, and maybe we'll get Doug on as well. We just happy to be here and happy to be a part of the team. Chris, thanks for having me.
Always, brother. And of course, Gary, I said you had a 10-pound brain, but sometimes it wasn't functioning correctly, which sounds like you had an update, according to Bob, on your Chrome.
I had to update Chrome and reboot, and then it worked. Apparently, StreamYard will not let you in if you have out-of-date Google Chrome browser.
You've got to go to space and come back and enter through that portal. So welcome home.
Yes,
welcome home. And also, you had a little incident. I don't know how much you want to share, if any.
None.
Okay.
I mean, the details are not necessary, but
all right. We'll keep
an incident, and I'm doing all right.
Gary's fine. Awesome. So tell everybody a little bit about Dr. Gary Broccato and the New Evil.
Okay, so I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist. I'm a visiting scholar at Boston College. I'm a member of the Cold Case Foundation expert panel. I do all of the assessments, the risk assessments for the CUNY system in New York for serious mental illness, violence, suicidality, etc. I was the co-creator of the Columbia Mass Murder Database. That's the largest study of mass murder ever done. I've written a few books, one of which is The New Evil with Michael Stone, and about 100 or so articles and book chapters on serious mental illness and violence. And I had quite a run in the past few days in terms of media outlets commenting on a few cases. So you'll see a whole bunch of stuff coming out at the same time that I'm in, including some Guthrie stuff. So I've been a busy boy when not having incidents.
Well, I'll tell everybody what happened to Gary. What happened was he got robbed on the subway by a 4-year-old.
Did you get robbed? By the way, did you really get robbed?
It means years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But when I got mugged in Manhattan years ago.
Was
and
it a 12-year-old? How old was the kid?
He's talking about an incident where I tried to rehabilitate a mugger.
He was like a little kid.
Right. I felt sorry for him. I said, you didn't have to do that. I would have helped you out. I tried to lecture him. He's a mugger.
How much did he get? How much did he get?
I basically had a chat with him and told him to get the hell out of it.
Trying to beat him with a shillelagh.
But he thinks it's hilarious.
Did you know Greg Cooper? He went over to Egypt to do Who Killed King Tut for the Discovery Channel.
Yeah.
While he was over there, okay, a guy says, "Hey, come on over here where all the tourists are," and like true to form, a guy who used to run the behavior science unit goes, "Yeah, what do you got going?" They take him behind one of the pyramids, and all of a sudden there's another dude there with an AK, and I'm like, "Are you serious? What's wrong with you people? You should have never left the group." He goes, "Yeah, I know. Have him tell you that story one day." So, you're in good company. If you got robbed by a 12-year-old, well, he got robbed by a guy behind. It
was actually 2 4.5-year-olds.
Oh,
yeah, but I'm sure you guys saw the mass stabbing incident we had at the port authority.
What's the deal on that, man?
I don't know. I mean, this is like, the stuff that happens in New York is unbelievable. But
did that happen outside your office?
It was about 12 blocks from my office.
It's right under Madison Square Garden, right?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But as far as I understand, they still haven't gotten to the bottom of it. Have you guys heard anything? Quite serious.
I haven't heard anything.
A lot of injuries. I mean, I don't know if there were any deaths.
Well,
they haven't said there were any deaths, but yeah, there were some serious injuries.
Yeah,
and then 12 people shot over the weekend in Toledo, Ohio. And I haven't seen any updates on that, but sounds like it was gang related, if you ask me.
Right. Well, when there are weapons used in a mass violence incident other than guns, I mean, my own work shows this. You lean toward the interpretation that it involved mental illness or drugs. And that is more probable with any weapon other than a firearm in a mass violence incident. So if you had to make an educated guess of what went on in the Manhattan incident, you might be thinking some deranged person went on a spree. But we'll see. But thank God there are no murders so far in that story. But the city's jumping. Supposedly our murder rate's dropping.
Yeah, sure.
That's what they say.
Well, that's because
we know how that works at the CENTCOM meeting.
It's because the offenders are getting younger. They'll learn.
They just don't report them. Yeah.
Well, it's sort of like there are fewer incidences, but what there is very bad. It's like when the famous Edward G. Robinson line, there ain't much, but what there is churse. Well, it's like that. When there is something, it's spectacularly horrible, so that's how it seems to be going right now. But and of course, there's always the possibility of terrorism, but I don't think so in this story. So we would have heard it.
Well, Madison Square Garden is going to be popping tonight.
Oh, that's what I'm worried about. You mean with the news?
And if that knife went on full auto, that may have the markings of some different things. So we'll see what happens.
The sear pin broke on the knife.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
I think they're about to tip off at Madison Square Garden.
All right, so I'll tell you, we've got with Doug here tonight. It's going to be a fascinating conversation. I saw Doug's channel last night. Actually, I was surfing and I ran across his assessment on the Nancy Guthrie geoprofile situation, and of course, we've had him on in the past. Like we talked about with the Marin case. And I thought it would be a good idea to have him here with our panel tonight, and everybody, kind of do a Q&A with the audience as well as you guys, and kind of, just have a great chat about what's the latest information, and look at some of his work, and, just kind of do an assessment here with all the different minds going here. But I want to remind the audience here tonight, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but Savannah was on TV today again, and she gave a plea, once again to find her mother. And I just want to play a real quick clip of her on, I think, with Jenna Bush this morning. I may be wrong, but hang on for a minute. Let me cue it up here, and we'll get started from here.
For you. And what I know all of us feel that way when you walked in the makeup room earlier. There were claps and hugs because you are beloved.
No. Well, you know I love coming here.
I know, and we love you here, and you're here, and it is National Best Friend Day, so we're celebrating the right way. But I've just marveled as somebody who knows you and loves you at your strength. You coming back here and leading the ship, which I know has not been easy, and yet here you are, morning after morning, getting out of bed, spending the mornings with us, and I know so many of you at home feel the same way about you.
Well, I mean, first of all, I can't really even look at you every day without crying. You are my best friend, and it's really hard to come back. And I've been trying so hard to hold it together, and I promise I will. This show and this hour especially is like about joy, but having you and all everyone at the people behind the scenes, people in my ear, the producers, our castmates, it's like, when I see you in the morning, I know that you see me no matter what is going on. And sometimes it's almost too much, because I feel like to do the job, I gotta keep it together, pull it together, but I'm happy to be back, and it's like the 2 hours of my day that it's not that I'm not thinking about it, because I am.
Yeah.
But it's something to do, and it brings me a lot of joy to be with everybody.
Yeah.
This girl's in a lot of pain. Gary?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no question.
And, this is why we do this program, and we assemble people like this tonight. We are factually based, and we want to make sure that we're supporting and we're not ripping down that emotional scene that we just witnessed right there. Everybody here is professional. We've all been through different things. I mean, we talked about recently one of our programs about the advantages or disadvantages of bringing in, different personality types, PIs and that kind of stuff. And, we couldn't disagree with any of it. Our one caution was always make sure that if they had hired somebody, we wanted to make sure it was really folks that would turn the information over to law enforcement and that kind of stuff. So that's always important to always recognize. And so we're going to approach this thing, tonight's program, from a different angle. And now that, with Doug here, Doug had some ideas that, in my opinion, are extremely powerful from, I think, all of us from an investigative analysis aspect. It also helps us to start thinking through, okay, if there is a direction of travel, I think we can all agree that it is much easier to find a car than it is a body. Would we, thoughts on that principle?
Oh, absolutely.
So tonight I want to approach this from let Doug kind of run here, and this is I think a really important show because hopefully the public will see that there may be some really significant information that can be gleaned from Doug's specialty. So with that, I'm just gonna, Doug, when you want me just to kind of change slides or whatever, just say so. And if you don't mind, we'll do kind of a Q&A. And if we stop you, or you want to stop or whatever, we've got over 5,000 people here right now in the program. So I'm just going to put it on the first slide and tell us what your thought process is as we're looking through these slides as we go along.
Sure. So some of what I have here tonight is insight, some of it's information, and some of it's education for individuals who that are watching here that don't necessarily know what goes on behind the scenes with things like digital forensics and that kind of stuff. So this first slide is just an image of Nancy Guthrie's house, and a bit of the information. I think one thing in this slide is incorrect. The sliding doors at the back, just the type of door it was, but that's okay. So the first thing what I do is I do an environmental scan. So I do an assessment of the actual environment where the crime took place. And in this case, it exists on 3 levels. So you have the immediate property, you have the larger neighborhood, and then you have the wider Tucson area. So you kind of got to look at all 3 and assess all 3. So, I mean, the first thing you're looking at is, was this targeted or was this opportunistic? I think was one of the initial questions that came out and that was being debated. And in doing that, you kind of look at, what drew this offender to this specific property. And that's another question in itself. Was the property the target, or was Nancy the target? Or was there another target and Nancy was secondary? But just looking at this property, I mean, this whole area of the Catalina foothills, it's kind of a CPTED nightmare. CPTED is crime prevention through environmental design. And the whole point of crime prevention through environmental design, it's in the title. You try to prevent crime or mitigate or lower crime by designing the environment. And in the Catalina foothills, it's dark. It's dark for a purpose. People there, from what I've researched, the little I've researched, they don't like the light pollution. So it's dark for a reason, which means there's low levels of lighting on the street. Houses have low levels of dim lighting.
And I think he froze.
With the desert. I froze?
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Keep going, bro.
I'm good. Yeah. So there's lots of foliage for concealment to limit human surveillance. There's the winding roads. The winding roads, it limits surveillance from other houses. Sorry, my dog's just.
That's all right. And by the way, our audience loves dogs, so you're good. And
so that's what we're looking at. Just a kind of a brief overview of coming into this neighborhood. So this person, this offender, either targeted this property intentionally and specifically, or they were targeting a residence in this neighborhood that fell within this kind of this environment of darkness, of isolation, of concealment. And when we look at whether this person targeted, and let's just say for the sake of argument right now that the primary motive was abduction, kidnapping. Let's just go with that for the moment. If that was the purpose, was it personal or was it economic? And that's another thing you have to look at when you assess this community is, did Nancy stand out economically? And from what I've seen is, and we're putting Savannah aside for the moment, she didn't stand out economically. This is a high net worth community. The properties are worth a lot. There's probably 10,000 people in this community that are millionaires or have that value in that range. So economically, she didn't necessarily stand out. So you're kind of trying to decide, was it personal, economic, or some kind of mixture of the two? But looking at her property here, and jump in anytime you want, anybody, please.
We're gonna.
This just kind of shows what this offender did he know this property, and everything labeled on here. We're trying to figure out whether this offender knew this property or whether he came across this property. So had he surveilled this property beforehand? Did he have prior knowledge of this property? And how good was that prior knowledge? And that will tell us something about the offender and about their relationship, both to either to the community or to Nancy herself.
Yeah. So the first assessment, and thank you for kicking this off here. I think the first assessment we came to as collectively as a group was Nancy was such a low risk victim that there was a high probability that at some point she had come across the suspect versus a high risk, right? Versus a truck stop. But the fact that she's home alone, environment, situation, circumstance, home alone by herself, 2:00 in the morning or whatever that time frame is going to eventually be. And this idea that she's asleep and the perpetrator, to your point, selects her house in this type of geographic region. John, thoughts?
Doug's description of what the neighborhood, the challenges that preventing crime are right on the mark. I began my law enforcement career working not in Arizona, but in California, in an environment very much like this, a desert environment, wealthy homes, curving roads, no illumination, and probably you're not going to see a lot of law enforcement patrolling. I may be wrong. They may have the ratio may be higher than it was in the old days, but it would be easy for an offender to get in and out of this neighborhood and not be seen by the cops.
Bob?
Thank you. Well, we know, and we have, I believe, all bought in to the idea that Nancy was definitely targeted here in this crime, and that it was not a random crime because of her wealth. It was a targeted hit on Nancy. We also know that that the suspect, porch guy, if you will, did at least one dry run, perhaps two dry runs, casing the place just to see, apparently to see what Nancy might have in the way of security. So, really nothing new to add to the discussion at this point, but this is actually a very good overview and kind of puts everything in perspective to get it started.
Gary or Josh?
Josh, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think what, when you're talking about the geographical location, that, with the light pollution situation, a lot of these people, especially elderly people, are kind of sitting ducks for perpetrators, and it kind of gives you a false sense of security out there. You go, oh, this is a really safe neighborhood. Well, it's safe until it's not. When a lot of people target these kinds of neighborhoods, and it doesn't happen. It may not happen a lot, but when you have low visibility, you're sort of in the middle of nowhere. The roads are kind of convoluted to get in and out. So I think it was sort of. I think that's a huge part of this case, why it's taking so long to solve it is because the location and the elements alone make it a much more difficult case to figure out.
Gary?
Well, Chris, I think you'd agree, as somebody else who works in the Cold Case Foundation, that a lot of what we're hearing at this stage of Doug's process sounds an awful lot like some of the filters that we use when we're thinking about a case. And some of what is being touched on here is victimology. And the problem that has always kind of churned around in my head with this case is the truth of the matter is that Nancy is a very odd victim on many levels. She is a very odd choice for a rare kidnapping because most victims are not elderly of a kidnap. A kidnap that is for money, you want the person alive and well to return for a ransom. So it's very strange to pick an 84-year-old woman who can't ambulate properly, that will be very difficult to move, etc. That's very strange. To scare her horribly, potentially. She has a pacemaker, she was bleeding, very odd, all of that for supposedly for a kidnap situation. And then you have the fact that she doesn't really have independent money, of her own. And it's, there are many things about this that, like Chris said, she's sort of a low risk victim. Everything about her is weird for the choice. And then you have the fact that, of course, it wasn't followed by proof of life and a proper ransom situation at all. So I think from a victimology perspective, it looks fishy. It looks like, the wrong kind of suspect, the wrong kind of victim for that narrative. It makes your ears sort of perk up if you've got a lot of experience with this stuff. And I mean, Chris, you get where I'm going with that? From a victimology perspective, it's weird. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. And the last time Doug was here, we broke down the Marin case, and that was a clear example of, how great work that he did, that was more of a stranger situation, and that's exactly how it ended up. Just a random situation that she was such a high risk, target because she was running through that park in Maryland, on those pathways and stuff, and then eventually ended up inside of that tunnel. But in this scenario here, it's the complete other side of the pendulum. I mean, here she is, sound asleep in her house. And I absolutely love this slide, Doug. Good job. Let's go to number 2 here and tell us what we're seeing here.
Yeah, in looking at the area, I found these kind of interesting because these helped me conduct some of my mapping. And one of the maps that's coming up, it'll show exactly where all of these are. And these exist at a lot of intersections in that area, and they're traffic signal cameras. Now they help the traffic lights change. That's what they do. And there's different makes, there's different models. I'm not sure exactly which one they use in this area. Some don't record at all. Some have a 24-hour loop. I'm not sure exactly what these do, but they exist both on a technical stage and they exist on a psychological one as well. Because it would help indicate how well this offender knew this area, where it fell within their awareness space. Because if these don't record at all, if they are simply traffic cameras, he would have no reason to avoid these when traveling. However, somebody like myself, if I showed up in this area, I might think that those are recording my vehicle, time-stamping, license plate, right? I have no idea.
Doug, where is this in relation to Nancy's home?
Yeah, we can, Chris, if you want to pull up, I don't know, maybe the next slide. So all those pink points, those pink markers are those traffic signal cameras. So you can see they're right around the community. They kind of encircle the community. It's pretty hard to get out of there without driving past one of them. Now, to the best of my knowledge, they don't record, but some people have said that they are on 24 hours. So it's tough to say. But it is something psychologically that an offender entering or exiting the community may avoid just in case.
Mhm.
Doug, I'm sorry. May I ask you a question before?
Of course.
Okay. So one of the things that we mentioned earlier was the idea that door guy may have been doing surveillance on, I think it was the 13th or something, if I remember correctly. Is that the date? 13th? Before the 31st? Am I right? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
One was the 11th.
Something like that. I got to look it up. But okay, the 11th. Well, but the question is, if there is some collusion between the guy who goes to the door and some mastermind who already gives them all the info on the house, then could the argument be made that the guy was looking for something else, like security cameras, etc., surrounding the house, but he's already got the intel on the house itself? If that's the case, what might he be looking for? This kind of thing? Because walking around doing it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, you can look at this at the community and the property level, right? In the community level, he's going to be looking for exit and entry and exit points with minimal surveillance, maximum coverage, isolation, concealment. He's going to be looking for technical surveillance at gas stations, these types of cameras, whether he thinks they are actually recording or not. At the property level, he's going to be looking at everything we looked at in the first slide. He's going to be looking at cameras around Nancy's residence, entry exit points to her residence, fortified entry points. The front door I have on there is fortified door because every front door of every house is fortified a little more than every other door to some extent, usually. He's going to be looking at concealment, where he can pull into the driveway and not be seen by a doorbell, a Nest Cam, and where he will be seen. So he's going to be surveilling all those types of things. And he's going to be surveilling every single neighbor and trying to get their routines and patterns and see who lives there.
What I understand about traffic cams like that is that they don't record like a continuous loop, that they're triggered when a violation goes off, and that they have, still photos most of the time. But some license plate reading capabilities, for violators and things like that. So, but they're kind of live monitored, but they don't have a lot of capability of storage. They're just there to catch people running red lights and traffic accidents and things like that, mostly.
Right. These ones specifically, as you mentioned, apparently are just to trigger the change of lights. Yep. Mostly at nighttime, right? Because during the day, there's usually they're on a timer maybe, right? And a lot of lights at night, they trigger when somebody pulls up. So sometimes that changes how it's used. But yes.
But where I was going, Doug, with the question was, so in other words, we can't presume that the guy that was scoping out things was a local simply because it looked like he took steps that would involve intimate knowledge of the area. It could simply mean that he did a lot of intel in the area. Right, because I've heard it said like, oh, the roads that were taken were probably a clever choice because he doesn't get caught on certain camera. But that doesn't necessarily imply being local, does it?
No, not necessarily. You could, like, as you mentioned, you could do surveillance, scope out the area, and we don't know whether he was a local or not. I suggest that he has a familiarity with the area, but he doesn't live directly in that community. That's kind of my gut feeling. Now, one thing that suggests he's comfortable and familiar with the area is the longer an offender spends at a crime, the more comfortable they are in that environment, right? And not only did this individual surveil and assess the area prior to the actual incident, right? He was also spent some time at Nancy's house. Now, I know Nancy's house is set back, it's dark, she's alone, so that allowed him to do that as well. But it just shows that he's...
Well, I think you froze, but Chris, Gary, okay.
You froze just for a second, Doug. You said her house is set back, and you froze. Pick it up from there.
Her house is set back. It's dark. So it affords him that time to spend more time at the location while he's doing whatever he's doing inside the residence, abducting Nancy. But the fact that he spends that time and returns to the area on more than one occasion, it suggests that he's comfortable in the area, comfortable enough to fit in, not stand out within that community on some level.
And Doug, do you think on the night of the abduction, do you think the suspect acted alone, or do you have any sense of whether he was alone or not?
I haven't seen anything that suggests there was a second offender. I won't say there wasn't, but I haven't seen anything to suggest there wasn't. And just to, I guess, to put out there what my theory is, or lack thereof, is for me to have a theory, I need either, an offender, a suspect, which there is no suspect at this point, a motive, which we don't necessarily know the motive at this point, and that can be debated, and a primary target, which at this moment we don't necessarily know the primary target, right? So was the primary target Nancy? Was it Savannah? Was it something to do with the property? Motive? Was the motive abduction? Or was the motive something else? So for me to have a theory as to who exactly it might be, I kind of look for those three things, and they're, at the moment, actually, I think they're all unknown.
Did you, if you don't mind, just another question. Did you see the photos of Porch Guy with a device in his right, I believe it's his right coat pocket, jacket pocket? There's been some speculation on what that could be, what type of device that was. With your knowledge in electronics, if you saw that photo, what do you think that device is?
It's a good question, Bob. I'm not sure. I'm not sure based on what I've seen, the clarity and the image itself, what that device is exactly. Yeah.
Okay. We've bannered this around quite a bit, and I believe that it's a two-way radio, and I think some of my colleagues agree with that here, but others have said that they thought it was either a Wi-Fi disruptor or a police scanner, and I don't think it's a police scanner. In fact, I'm 99.9% convinced it's a two-way radio. And then
Bob,
go
that
ahead, John.
would indicate our argument has also been, as if you are carrying a portable radio, this infers that there must be at least a second suspect waiting with the vehicle. And we've also looked at it as an issue of the logistics of one person moving a victim and then driving. So we have been leaning in the direction of a minimum of two offenders and possibly a third acting as a lookout.
And they had the forethought of knowing that if they were communicating using their cell phones, that they would be pinging off of those towers, and they would be able to put several people within the area of Nancy's house. So it shows some sort of sophistication and forethought when it comes to committing this crime. I was going to say earlier, although Nancy may be a low risk, she may be a low risk victim, her surroundings would indicate that she becomes more higher risk with the darkness, the isolation, and things like that, and people take advantage of that situation. An elderly person, elderly people are targeted a lot for a lot of different crimes, and now abductions, I'm sure, are very rare, but like you said, Doug, who knows if that was the actual intent going into it.
Right.
So let me just throw out one more thing just to add to this discussion of whether or not this Porch Guy acted alone or not. So when you go back to the video, and Chris, you don't need to do this, but if you look back at the video or think back at the video of Porch Guy bending down and picking up the shrubs, He stands up fairly erect, and then he looks toward over to his left toward the road, not completely, not at a 90-degree angle, but he looked toward the road, and he appears to be looking at someone or something. Something caught his attention there. Some of Chris's viewers believe that he's signaling to somebody, and that could very well be. A lot of the viewers saw that in the video, and so I think it's worthy of mention. And so I just wanted to throw that out, just to add to the radio theory, and to go along with what John said. It would, I think, and we think as a group, I believe all of our panel believes this as well, that it would be very, very difficult for one person to carry this out by themselves. Now, one person may have done the abduction and confronted Nancy inside the home, abducted her, somehow caused her to bleed on the front porch. But it would be very difficult, to John's point, for one person, I don't care how big they are, how fit they are, it would be very difficult for one person to get 150-pound dead weight. Or if she were still alive, it's possible that she was fighting or putting up some type of resistance. That would be very difficult for one person to put Nancy in the car, drive off without being detected.
And Bob, this is a very specialized form of information we're talking about. If you've never attempted to put somebody in a car that's resisting, and we've done it, and if you haven't done it, you don't understand that it can be extraordinarily difficult to move a single person. And so that's
and
an
we
area
understand
of specialized knowledge.
Yeah, and understanding that Nancy is 84 years old and has mobility issues and so forth. But I've posited here on this channel that she could have been in a fight or flight mode, and that anyone in that mode that thinks they're about to lose their life or that they're in grave danger are going to fight no matter what their mobility issues are. They're going to put up some type of resistance, however they can do that. Whether that's biting, spitting, flailing, whatever. Okay. Even an 84-year-old woman, in my opinion, is going to do that under these circumstances. So just wanted to throw that out to add to the conversation.
Well, is it all right if I ask a question, Chris? Or
yeah, there you go. Run.
Okay.
I'm listening.
So based on your sense of the technological savvy of the people involved here, because this is one of these things I like to play bingo with in my mind when there's a prosecution. Like, is this going to be on the documents or not? Do you think we're going to discover that these are people who did like Google searches on how to avoid detection technologically? Or is your sense that they're clever enough that they had some knowledge about this? I mean, just if you had to take the, if you had to gauge the intellect, the IQ, the technological IQ of the people involved here, you think this is just a bunch of people who looked it up and did an amateur hour kind of take on it, or do they seem pretty savvy?
Now you're putting him on the spot, man. I mean, that's
is that for me, or is that was that for me?
Yeah, because you would have the ability to answer that. To be honest with you, it seems amateur hour to me, but I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything to suggest that this is a sophisticated offender or technologically savvy whatsoever. I mean, the fact that, I'll just, one example, he went back for the Nest camera, the doorbell camera, right? And he put himself in that camera to go get that camera, not knowing that that camera is storing images on the cloud anyway. So why put himself in that camera and even go out or in that door? I would be surprised if law enforcement has more footage of going in or out that door. I think we just saw a quick glimpse, kind of, like the Delphi case where we just see a quick audio clip, but they have more, right? I wouldn't be surprised if law enforcement has more.
Yeah, I think they have a lot more. I think they have significant camera footage that rightfully they have not released.
And is
Yeah,
there
And
anybody
thank goodness they haven't.
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
goodness, right? Is there
Yeah.
anybody here who doesn't think that they're looking at search histories of people to look for things like,
they're flushing everything digitally in that arena right now, in that area of operation there. Everything's coming in.
Yeah, but
Everything's coming in.
can you like subpoena Google and say, tell us all the people within a certain number of miles radius who Googled, how to avoid getting caught on a camera, that kind of thing.
Well, according to the FBI director, that they didn't even have to subpoena anybody, that they just went to their partners at Google and asked them for some help, and they said sure.
I think that was for the Nest camera.
Yeah.
Correct.
If you want to do the reverse Google search, so that's a type of geofence warrant. But you really have to narrow the search area down as best as possible. So in this case, and a couple of my slides show it, you could do a reverse geofence warrant for individual mobile devices. But to do a reverse Google search warrant, you would have to identify an area that this offender potentially lived or used a computer at, and then type in the exact phrases you want to search from there. So obviously Nancy Guthrie, her address, how to kidnap somebody, and see if any of those phrases come up in that specific location.
Yeah.
Now, Doug, on this slide here, and just for the audience, we're aware of that people are being arrested in front of Nancy Guthrie's house. So for the chat, we've seen it. So let's focus on this conversation right now, and then we'll address that later on. And if people are being arrested on a public street for covering a crime, then just real fast, my recommendation is get a civil attorney. You're going to own Pima County. Okay, that said, let's move to the next slide here. I'm curious as to what this gas station is all about here. And I'm assuming that yellow is Nancy's house. Is that correct?
Yes, the yellow house icon is Nancy's house. The gas stations are just an example of important areas, important intersections, because we all know that gas stations are just loaded, covered with surveillance cameras. Whether he stopped at that gas station or not, coming or going for fuel, just passing by them, he could be caught on surveillance. So it just shows different areas that law enforcement, I assume, has already looked into gathering surveillance from.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what your opinion is on the one gas station they did go to. Do you have any intel from your research on the one gas station that they did go to?
You'd have to refresh my memory exactly which one that is. I'm not
So
sure.
Go ahead, Josh. What were you going to say?
Going to say anything?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were, I apologize. My understanding is in the neighborhood, they had gone into either an Arco gas station or a Chevron gas station. I don't recall the exact name of it, but it was a gas station. And they went in and they gathered some type of evidence. I'm assuming it was going to be videotape or something to that effect. Does anybody else remember that?
And wasn't there an automated teller that was supposedly dealt with Bitcoin?
Yeah, there was also a Bitcoin machine in that gas station.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anybody, Circle K. Thank you, Go Twins. Yeah, Circle K. That would be an interesting piece of this puzzle. What does that tell you about the offender risk level that individual would be taking, Doug, to expose themselves potentially even to that type of environment? And do you believe that could be, this is a two-part question. Do you believe that could also show familiarity to the geographic region here?
Yeah, I think it shows one of two things, or a combination of the two. I think it shows either maybe one of three things. Either risk, right? Stopping, spending any more time than necessary in this community, stopping at any gas station, anything with surveillance, ATM teller, using anything digital, it either shows high risk, it shows, incompetence, not knowing that is a risk, or it shows some level of comfortability in this area, and this is part of their awareness space, and they go there on a regular basis, and it's just automatic at this point.
Break that down a little bit more. What does awareness space mean for the audience?
Yeah, so the best way I can describe your awareness space is if you can close your eyes and navigate around an area, your community, your city, where you can navigate, whether you know all the street names or not, that doesn't matter, but where you can navigate with your eyes closed, that's your awareness space. Okay. It's an area that just through repetition you've become familiar with. And most of us have more than one, right? You have one where you live, you have one where your parents live in another city, you have one at a former address where you used to live. But it just shows how comfortable you are in that area. So I think you'd have to take different factors, different elements of the case to kind of assess whether it was incompetence, risk, or familiarity.
To what Doug just said, Gary, from a psychological aspect, when you see the suspect on the porch, based on what Doug just said, what comes to your mind?
Well, one of the things that I thought of looking at that, which I was pleased to see, was also said by Mary Ellen O'Toole in an interview on the case. I was glad to see we think the same way of it. Is that something that can cause a person to not have fear of bodily harm or risk or anything like that is psychopathy. A person who has a history of at least petty crime, who's in that sort of sociopathic spectrum, might be horrified by something that insults his ego or practically motivated to conceal his identity, but probably isn't even going to get an elevated heart rate at the idea of going in to abduct someone or anything like that. One of the things that we have thought about, I think Bob was the first person to raise it, I think it's a very good point, is that it's also possible the reason this guy doesn't look freaked out is that the deed was already done by then, that this was a staging situation, for instance, and she had expired somewhere else. And to that point, one of the things that perhaps that's a good segue into asking you this, one of the things that I keep thinking about from the technological perspective that's really bothering me is that when porch guy gets there, that camera is supposedly recording, and Nancy supposedly came home in a car and was dropped off. Is the car passing in front of the house on the camera?
Yeah, I think and if you go back to my first slide, Chris, I think he made the mistake initially, maybe from inadequate surveillance. I think he drove up the front section of the driveway. Because if you come in the green section of the driveway, your car's hidden. It's not on that camera. However, if you pass by that red section, now you've got the make, model, color of the vehicle on the camera, and now you have to go back and get the camera. So I think he...
Oh, that's an interesting point. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
That's totally unique. Right, but that's a whole other animal, then I definitely want to hear about that. But what I'm getting
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but
go ahead.
But
I'm sorry.
If the narrative is true that she was brought home,
right,
the car should pass in front of that camera, and it should be recorded because the Nest camera wasn't dismantled yet. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the distance settings on the camera. Would it pick up a car on the road or only on the driveway? I'm not sure of that answer.
It was supposedly going to the garage. She was supposedly going to the garage, so I think the car would have been seen on the camera. If it isn't there, then you got a problem.
But if they just drove up that green route on the map there, you wouldn't pick it up on that front doorbell camera.
So there is an alternative way that the car could have come. So that's which way?
Yeah, the driveway. You can drive in that green route or the red.
Yeah, and like, depending on settings, you don't always want your camera or your Ring doorbell or Nest camera going off when a car drives by on the road. It's really, really annoying for that to happen. So it kind of gets, those things are mostly for, the porch. They're mostly for, when somebody maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 feet in front of the door or something like that. But anything further out and you're going to be getting dinged all the time. And it's very annoying.
Something,
Go ahead, Bob.
something that we discussed here on this channel, and I know I read something in an article about this early on in the case, right about the same time we discovered Porch Guy, or they released that video. There was an article written, and I can't remember what publication, but it discussed some Facebook posts, I believe, that Nancy made to her neighborhood group, telling her neighbors that she had put cameras up, but they were not necessarily security cameras. They were to capture wildlife, and that's why she put them up, presumably because the neighbors had seen whoever put the cameras up, whoever installed them. And we know now that there was at least one camera on the roof of the home, and then perhaps some in the backyard, in addition to the front door camera. So if she's going to view wildlife from, let's say, the front door camera, she's going to have that expanded out as much as she could. And I agree with Josh that it would probably not capture the street, but it probably would capture that circular portion or half circular driveway and as much of the yard as she could get in order to view the wildlife. Okay. So let's remember that part of it. And I think that that's been corroborated, I believe, through the family. And I don't remember where I heard that, but I did hear that. So, I think we have to take that into consideration when we're thinking about Gary's theory of the car has to be caught on the camera. So it was probably expanded out. And I have a Ring camera. I have 2 Ring cameras on my home, and you can expand. I think most everybody knows now by now how they operate. You can expand the capture area, if you will, of what you get alerts to and what the camera sees.
Sensitivity also.
The sensitivity. Yes.
But just to be clear,
I have a question.
Please do.
Doug, you've shown the green route where you're speculating that perhaps that is where the offender's vehicle was. How do we rectify that with the blood shifting in a 180-degree different direction, which we covered? Because in order to get to that vehicle, they would have to go out and have to go to their left, which on the picture would be to the right, when the blood would seem to indicate a turn in the opposite direction. And in fact, we saw photographs of what looked like a criminalist and a U.S. attorney, and they were scrutinizing that area very closely. So
that area that Porch Guy was looking.
Yeah.
The same direction and area where Porch Guy was looking that I mentioned earlier.
Exactly.
And just one more point on, and I'm sorry to interrupt everybody here. Just one more point on the doorbell camera in the front door. As we could see from the Porch Guy video, that camera caught quite a bit of the yard. Now, it is there's some parameters, obviously, because of the archway there leading up to the porch, or right at the onset of the porch where the tiles start. But it did capture a fair amount of the yard and some of that driveway, I believe. And to that point, that would be probably as much as she could get with a doorbell style camera, and then still have the ability to capture perhaps some critters, walking up to the porch or walking around that part of the driveway or that part of the yard. So we could see that in the Porch Guy video. There are a lot of comments in the chat about that. So I just wanted to clarify that. All you have to do is go back and look at the porch camera or the Porch Guy video, and you can see what I'm talking about.
But just to be clear, everybody follows the importance of the potential implication that the car isn't on the camera, because
Oh yeah.
as far as I understand it, there's no corroborating evidence that that car ever went home. So I'm saying it might be a glimpse. It would be enough to start to get an idea that there really was a car there. And so that's why I was wondering from a technological perspective. But the other point that you wound up making was very important too. And we sort of went down this rabbit hole, but I don't know, Chris, that you had pointed out that that point hadn't been made before at all. And it is an interesting one. So I don't know, Doug, maybe you want to sort of drive that home again, because it was sort of jumped out there and I was like, oh, haven't heard that before.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole other group of dynamics that we still just don't have intel on yet, that are going to answer a lot of these questions. But I think, respectively, I think we can most definitely say, and by the way, Holly, I just wrenched you. Welcome to the mod team. Congratulations.
She's great.
She's amazing. And we've watched you for quite some time, and Karen and I just made a decision to give you a wrench. So go to work. And also, all other folks in here, we're totally aware of what's going on out there. So please don't disrupt this chat for other people who are focusing on the conversation here. That said, it's when we look at this big, and by the way, again, I have to compliment Doug on this slide. I mean, this is a very good overview here. When we look at the totality of this, and the fact that if in fact a suspect is, coming into this thing with some pre-surveillance, and those behavioral aspects of it in of itself are really fascinating for this guy, because if there are two photographs of this guy, number one, the night of the incident, number two, the night prior to the incident, where may or may not be the same guy. At this point, we have no other evidence to say it's not the same guy. But let's just presuppose it is two people, right? The dynamics of getting her out of the house, the cars that, Doug's pointed out here with the green point of inbound, and then the red as well. Either way, if he were to pass the front and that camera's not feeding to a cloud, Bob made the point a long time ago that camera's still running. If it's battery operated, and if the suspect has removed it and put it in their pocket, well, I'm a betting man here, and I'd say 500 on black that the FBI has that video even running inside of his pocket, and so to continue to raise your risk that way and then leave with her potentially with that video running in your pocket, we don't know if there's a secondary location. If that guy takes that thing out of his pocket and puts it down not realizing that it's recording. I mean, if there's a vehicle involved, it could be recording inside of that vehicle in his pocket. And I don't have any indication that it's not picking up sound. Does anybody know anything about that? Doug or anybody?
I don't know about the Nest camera. The Ring camera has, of course, sound capability because it's at a front door, and you want to be able to communicate with somebody that comes up and pushes the button, and you caught them on camera. So, but I'm not sure about the Nest. I'm assuming that it does. I think they all operate fairly similar, and so it probably does. The question though would be, once you get out of Wi-Fi range with that camera, is there an internal recording aspect to that? Because in order for it to record, it would have to have, in most cases, it would have to have Wi-Fi. So like in my case, I have one of my cameras is battery operated and the other is hardwired. The one that's hardwired, if my Wi-Fi goes down, that camera is inoperable. It doesn't record anything, doesn't take photos, nothing. But the opposite is true with the battery operated camera, where it'll keep going. But once I remove the battery operated camera from the Wi-Fi signal. So if I took it off and walked it up the street away from my home Wi-Fi, it's not going to record or not going to show me any photos. But my question is, does it have an internal card or something where it's still capturing video? And Doug, do you know?
I don't know on this specific one. I mean, they're all different. They all have different settings. Sometimes you can turn those on or off remotely. So I'm not exactly sure what capabilities this one had. Her specific Nest camera had activated at the time, technically and in terms of storage and whatnot.
So, interesting. And let's show some love to Doug's channel. If you haven't subscribed over there, it's below. You jump over there, and at the end of this, blow his channel up, and the same with Josh. Okay, so let's take a look at this slide here and walk us through what your observation and thought process is.
So this is a map that I had put together, and I put this together prior to the map that came out, which I guess Annie released, if I'm correct, to people within the community that was at the title screen of this episode. So I put this out prior to that coming out, which I found was kind of interesting. Basically, I just identified the different routes out and the optimal route out of that community. And I'll explain why. So Route 77, I know locals have, what's the local name for it? I'm not sure. What? Route 77, the main road north and south there. It's got an actual name, but I just can't think of it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know either.
That's okay. So somebody in the chat will know. So that's the main corridor, north-south corridor. And after committing this crime, this offender is going to want to get out of the area. And most likely...
Oracle Road? Is it
Oracle Road?
Yeah, because I Googled it.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks, Gary. So Oracle Road, they're going to want to get to that road, most likely, to get out of this area. And they can either go down into Tucson or they can go north into remote territory, remote areas. Fastest route out of there is that optimal route that I put in red. And I just found it interesting, because it's very close to the route that Annie released in her map to the community members, which you can put up as well if you have.
Yep.
There's just one little detour on it from that route. So, yeah, I mean, any offender after they commit a crime is going to look to get out, get to safety, right? And that's kind of the route that I would suspect this offender would have taken out, but it's possible they went out another direction as well.
Yeah, actually, I took it out of the presentation because I wasn't sure. So, forgive me for that, which leads to a conversation in of itself before we dive a little bit deeper into this one. And this is going to be kind of an open-end question for everybody. Thoughts on how she would conclude this would have been an offender's route. And I'm gonna try to find a photograph here.
Do we know why she released that route?
Well, that's why we're having this program tonight. I am as curious as the next guy.
And that's my question regarding that map. That exact question is, it doesn't really matter what Nancy's route would have been, right? Because we're not focused on Nancy's route. We're focused on the offender's route out of that area.
Okay, so allegedly this, and by the way, for the record, we do not know 100% confirmed from any law enforcement source in any way, shape, or form that this is an actual map that was released by Annie Guthrie to the police. It's been reported on many, news agencies, as well as news programs, YouTube channels, etc. However, we're going to run off the premise that it could be real. And if so, then we're going to kind of weigh in here in relationship to why this would be significant. So the first question that comes to my mind is, if this is what was actually released to the panel, what do you think's going on here? Gary, we'll start with you.
Well, again, I want to make sure that it's very clear that there's no aspersion casting, and obviously in this, but just, that's why I'm hesitant to answer questions like that, but I to be honest with you, I prefer, I don't feel comfortable to answer it, because I don't want to interpret what that would imply. But I think, what do you guys think? What does the group think? Yes. Okay, Josh. Go ahead.
I think that they were probably, obviously Annie, Tommaso know the area well. They drive the roads often, and so that could be one reason. Another reason is that sometimes you get some leakage from people that they're the last people to be with Nancy, and you could get some leakage. That's just simple as that, really.
Right. But
one thing that I get from this map now, if this map was released by Annie to the community to help with the search, help with the investigation, my question to her would be, are there particular spots, anchor points along this route that Nancy would frequently go? Because from that, I would take that into the investigation and I would do what I call a routine convergence analysis, right? And so I would look at what points along here on her normal day-to-day routine could she have interacted with the offender? Did the offender meet her at the market? Did he meet her at church? Did he meet her at, the local yoga class, whatever she did in life? And those are those would be things you'd want to look into for the investigation is, did this offender know Nancy? And if so, where did he meet her? So in that sense, maybe that's what she was getting at. This is part of Nancy's, this is a snapshot of Nancy's life. And if so, I'd want to elaborate on that and go deeper into that.
So
go ahead, Chris, please.
So your suggestion is, and I agree with you, that this is a pattern of life, that she would have said, yeah, my mom goes to Bashas, and this is the most logical route that she would go. Yeah, interesting thought, but I want to think through also your overlay here. The red is the overlay of that map I just showed, right?
Pretty close. It diverges just before it hits Oracle Road, but
okay, got it. So look at the other routes that Doug is proposing here and has explored here. And so the question would be, why would she choose the one in the middle and then apply it to a suspect?
Well,
Yeah,
now I was hesitant to answer. No, please go ahead.
I was going to say quickly, it just reinforces what I put here with the offender leaving the area. She identified Nancy's optimal route towards Oracle Road, which is the same optimal route that I identified with the offender. That's what I would say to that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Chris?
Fair enough. Go ahead, John.
Now, just before I go any farther, we're speculating that this was the route that supposedly Annie identified that the offender took after abducting her mom. Is that what I'm hearing here?
Well,
I don't know if that's what she meant by the map.
Oh, why would you assume any direction is my question. Well, to me, this seems a very peculiar.
No, that's a great question. I mean, I can answer from my perspective. So in part of when I do a profile like that, I mean, it's all about maximizing and allocating resources and efficiency, right? So if I was working this case, I would say, first and foremost, focus your resources on Route A. It's the most likely route out towards Oracle Road, and look for digital evidence, geofencing along Route A. If you get no returns, then go to Route B and C. So it's all about focusing and maximizing resources, efficiency, time, money, people.
Would there be equal numbers of cameras and so forth on all of those routes? Or would one of them be more precarious in terms of being picked up?
It's tough to say, because I mean, just from the signal camera, there's no signal cameras along that specific route, if those meant anything to this offender. But in terms of other types of surveillance, people, Nest cameras, it's hard to say what was the best route out in their mind. It could have been a completely different route.
What I don't understand, Doug, is why is the presumption that all routes are heading generally west?
It's
to me, it's as likely that they could have continued east.
100%. So the assumption would be, again, it would be, where do we go with this investigation right now? Where do we focus our resources? Because resources are finite, right? So it would be, okay, this offender is likely trying to get out of the area. To get out of the area, the fastest route is Oracle Road, which is north-south, and that's to the west. So let's look there first. But you're right, it could have been any direction. So if we don't have anything there, now let's look into other routes out of the area as well.
So this is perplexing, because not what you're saying, Doug. I'm just trying to process this map here on why. Well, first of all, right. I mean, how many of us have handed an individual piece of paper and slid it across the table and said, so, draw for me where you think, this may have happened, or who may have gone what direction. Right. And you usually don't end up with such a graph like this, where you can say, hey, my mom's salon's in here. You go this way, you go past the nail salon, you go to Bashas. Okay. And then, to John's point, you go, well, wait a minute, to your work here, you go, wait a minute. If everything's going north and then west, did Nancy never, ever go east in any way, shape, or form? Or perhaps maybe they just didn't press her enough on that. And when you add this to the conversation about the doors were propped open, this is your fault, honey, i.e., it's a kidnap for ransom. And we don't know when that first phone call occurred between Cameron and anybody. I don't think Cameron just pulled that out of the cloud, personally. I think there was a pre-incident conversation or post-incident incident conversation that he said, what? And then Savannah called him, and he just regurgitated that information.
So do you think that at that point, though, that they were aware that this could have been a kidnapping for ransom, and that's what he said? Because it would be odd for him to just kind of bring that up without any sort of information of there being a ransom.
Well, here's I'm going to throw a curveball at the panel. Okay, you guys know how I operate.
All right.
Remember, they impounded a car, and she knew it.
That's a good point.
What if the telematics data is going to overlay on this map? Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I didn't think of that. Would the police act? I mean, you guys were detectives. You guys are detectives. Wouldn't you ask the route that would be the easiest from somebody who was there with her last? And then when you get the telematics back, you would overlay it, see if it matches.
John, Bob, Gary.
This whole
No.
case, this
No.
whole case is about. This whole case is about. There's a simple road that gets you from thought A to thought B, but you're being made to think that you have to take elaborate routes to get to the truth. It's a.
It's Annie and Tommaso's home.
It's a metaphor for the whole case that it's probably Occam's razor, simpler than it looks.
Mm-hmm.
And without getting, whatever that means. But the point is that I just think it's simpler than it looks. And this whole thing, it feels like a kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It seems to match that in my mind. You guys get what I'm saying? It's probably a straighter road.
Well, and Doug, Doug's an expert at geoprofiling, and here we have a situation as simple as, to your point, Gary, as simple as, this is the route, and I'm just gonna put it on a Facebook group, hypothetically. Okay. And this is the route. And then all of a sudden you realize you're sitting across from somebody who has your car in custody, for lack of a better term. And I would love to have this graph that Doug put together and slide it over and say, well, let's talk about these routes. Why do you think the suspect wouldn't have taken this route, up here, exit route yellow, or the green route? What is it about the red route that jumps out at us?
Well, do you think the proper response would be, I have no idea?
Well, that would be a reasonable response. How would I know how they got out? Where is Annie and Tommaso's house on this map?
Well, but that's what if somebody were to ask me that, I go, how the hell am I supposed to know?
So I'm still in the dark. You guys know I'm a simple-minded guy, and it takes me a little bit to comprehend some things.
Tell me another.
Why did she release? Why did she release this map? I still don't understand why she put this out. Annie, that is. Do we know? In response to what's the context?
I heard that this was given to a neighbor of hers from her, and that the neighbor put it out online. That's what I've heard.
Okay, so Annie actually didn't put it out. It's a third party put it out.
Correct.
So this might all be completely speculative.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Exactly. But even if
because it was on the internet, it must be true.
But it's still a metaphor.
So let's go to the next slide.
I agree.
Doug, what do we got going here?
Oh, this is just if this individual, if this was a homicide from the get-go, I think this individual would have gone out of the area into rural territory pretty quick, rural land, isolated land pretty quick. It could have been along that route north, or it could have been just along some back road out of the community. But I don't think they would have gone down into Tucson. So it's just, worst case scenario if that's what happened from the get-go.
Oh, and sorry, but in the chat, and this does make sense, that the reason possibly for the map is for neighbors to check their cameras along those routes.
Cameras, yeah, they would have checked gas stations along that route because that would have been the quickest route.
Right. But the police have already done that.
Right. No, actually, from what I remember, that they didn't ask for camera footage from neighbors for a little while after the crime had already occurred.
But they did an extensive canvass in that entire neighborhood looking for footage from all the neighbors.
That's where that setback from the road really comes in. That's really tough with that setback.
What I'm saying is, I don't think from what I remember, that it didn't happen right away. That the canvassing for camera footage didn't happen immediately.
Right. Right.
Because they put out a statement asking if anybody had any footage that they could turn over, but that didn't happen right away.
Well, but it was twofold from the very beginning. Once the FBI got involved after day 4, that's one of the things that they did. And then the footage that they collected and the information they collected there, the FBI analysts analyzed the video and whatever other information they had. So they started doing that from the beginning, and it would be appropriate and good investigative tactics to not only go door to door, but also ask the public for any footage that they might
Well,
have.
they moved out of a 2-mile radius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but initially it was within a 2-mile radius. And after that, that's when they expanded asking, and that's maybe where that map could have came from.
Well, everybody says that map was put in an HOA Facebook group by Annie. That's the intel that's floating around here. So, if that's true, then obviously that's a very concerning piece of evidence here. That meaning, why would anybody whose mom's been kidnapped in any way, shape, or form offer an escape route for the suspect?
Yeah, it just seems odd to me that if she in fact put that out there, it just seems odd to me that she would do that, especially at this point, because this was just recently released. Am I correct?
No, it was released early on, Bob. Early on. I've just never reported on it.
I think my main sorry, Chris.
No, go ahead, Doug. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think my main question there would be the timestamp on it, because if she released that in the first 12 hours, it could be simply, this is where my mother often goes if she was to take Uber or whatever. Has anybody seen her along this route? So,
Great point.
Yeah.
Right. But Doug, your point about heading, where the offender may have offended, are you suggesting to dispose of a body?
Right. They're not. Yeah.
Just to read between the lines of what you were saying. So you're suggesting that they would have gone into some secluded area and done whatever was going to happen with the body, a dump or a burial or dismemberment, whatever awful thing could have happened. And what is that? Is that the desert area there where we would have?
It's just away from. Yeah, it's just away from Metro Tucson. And I mean, it could have been that route. It could have been any side route up into the mountains, wherever. But if it was a homicide, right from ground zero, right from her house, then I would assume he'd want to dispose of her pretty quick. So that's just that'd be another. You'd want to look into the kidnapping scenario and where would he take her for that. But also, if it wasn't a kidnapping and he was disposing of her, where would he go for that? So,
well, my understanding is that, from what I was reading, and I could all be incorrect, but my understanding is that it's not uncommon for people to leave bodies in that particular desert.
Right.
I suppose the idea being that the elements will do the work of eliminating the remains. In those situations, I can't find any literature on it. I guess this is just something you guys would know from experience, especially you, John, because you said you worked in a desert area, whatever. But is there much left of a person when that's the situation, or do you usually wind up with a no body scenario?
When on the occasions in the desert, there could actually be remains. There tends to be predation, from particularly coyotes, and I believe that there are wild pigs out there, what they call javelinas, and they'll eat human flesh. So yes, you're assuming that both the weather, the environment, and the animals will dispose of the corpse. I guess the other thing is that, and I've said this before, I believe that the whole purpose of this was to commit a homicide. That was the ultimate result. There may be cul-de-sac that come off the sides as far as other actions, which means they had already identified the body dump location in advance.
Right, but the problem with the homicide idea, and I agree with you, but the problem with it is that if the motive is financial, not having a body, long delays being able to acquire any. I mean, if the suggestion is somebody who could potentially collect money, there would be a long delay in doing that, would there not?
Exactly, but the problem also is no proof of life for the kidnapping.
Right. So financially, it wouldn't be a very smart thing to do. It argues more in favor of that it was supposed to be an abduction for money that went south than an overt. You get where I'm going with that, because
I do, and I just tend until I have more information, I'm going to look at this from your book, Gary, as an elimination murder.
That's what I.
And if you haven't read his book, you have any interest in true crime, you need to. So I just pimped your book, but I mean that's to me what it looks like until I get more information.
But go ahead, please. Go ahead, Josh.
So let's go back to the geofence slide here for a minute. And Doug, explain to the audience, and thank you everybody for being here this evening. We got about 8,400 people here right now, and we're grateful for that. So if you can all hit that thumbs up and the subscribe buttons, and go over to Doug's channel, which is listed below in the notes, as well as Josh's, and support these guys. That would be grateful. And of course, go buy John's books and Gary's books, because that helps them. Everybody's here on a volunteer basis, and we'd be grateful for that. But let's talk a little bit about geofencing and about cell tower networks, and why do you feel it's important in relationship to this case, Doug?
Sure. And just quickly before I get into this, just on a note on John's comment, is that I work quite a few of no-body homicide cases. It tends to be fairly popular these days, no-body homicide cases. And my role in that is locating body deposition sites or potential body deposition sites. And when that is the case, you need a suspect to do that, because you need to create a geographic profile of that suspect in order to identify high probability sites for body deposition sites. So without a suspect, you're just kind of, it's a needle in a haystack, especially out there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a good point. And I also think, just to apologize, someone in the audience pointed out that in talking about the remains and so forth, that it might be insensitive. So I just wanted to apologize if we came across as, a little callous or something, and speaking in an objectified way about something so sensitive. It's a good point.
Right.
Are we ready? Here we go. Cooking.
Yeah. So what a geofence warrant is, it's a type of a reverse warrant. And a reverse warrant just means after the fact. So a geofence warrant is you're identifying an area with a polygon, so GPS coordinates. And what you're doing is you're asking for all mobile devices that were within that specified area. So in a case like this, the first one would likely be the street that Nancy lived on. Now, and John and Bob are more than welcome to jump in. So with a geofence warrant, what you want to do is, for privacy issues, you want to do your best to make it as small as possible. You can have multiple locations, but each one as small as possible. And also do your best to eliminate other citizens, so we're not gathering their information as well. So in a case like this, you try to get the street and you try to get her house. And if this suspect had a mobile device on them, and different devices can be included in it, but if they had a mobile device on them and it showed up. And you also give a specific time frame. So for this case, we'd say between maybe 9 p.m. and 3 a.m., for example. And every device that was in that polygon that you identified between the different directions.
Okay, you broke up just at the point where you said that polygon, and then it
Okay. Right.
just
So
no big.
yeah, so you get a return back with all the devices that were within that identified area between that time frame that you also identified. So in her case, 9 p.m. and 3 a.m., for example, and all devices that were in that area during that time would be returned back. And then law enforcement, the investigators can go through that and question those and investigate each one of those mobile devices.
So this is a really important concept here. So let's unpack this a little bit simpler for our audience here, because I think, we all understand this, but
Right.
To kind of unpack it a little bit more, if you wouldn't mind,
Sure.
just point out what you got going here on this slide.
Sure. And this just goes back to, we've all heard the phrase tower dump in different cases, such as this case. I'm sure they did a tower dump. So a tower dump is just getting every mobile device that connected to a specific tower in a specific time frame. It's more difficult than it sounds. So here on this map, you see many different towers. And these towers, I'm not sure what I put in. It might have been T-Mobile, Mobile, AT&T, Verizon. I'm not sure which one. But each one has different towers. So you have to know, obviously, the person's provider you're looking for. And in this case, we don't have a suspect. So we don't have a provider. So we don't really know. Law enforcement doesn't know. Are they looking for Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, or another provider? Once you know that, then you have to get the information from a specific tower. And there's plenty of towers, as you can see. And I think the big thing about tower dumps is most people that are unfamiliar with how cell reception works, they just assume it's a circle around a tower. But that's not how towers receive signals from devices. It's random polygons, and every tower has different polygons, such as the one here. It's one tower, and this is the area it covers, those different polygons. And the reason for that is to maximize the strength of that signal in specific areas. So for just an easy example is along a highway, an interstate that goes through rural Washington or Montana or wherever, you don't want to waste that signal strength on just forest area. So all the signal strength, all the reception is based right along the interstate. So as you're driving along the interstate, your cell phone always works. But if you go, a mile off into the bush, it's dead. That's because they're focusing that signal strength. So that's kind of how cell towers work. But for tower dumps, you can see the complexity and how much data that an investigator would actually have to gather and have to work with.
Awesome. And also for the audience, so what Doug is explaining here, so let's say an investigator from the ICAC team, hypothetically, goes into a residence with a device, and the device is traditionally called a UFED. And let's say, and just give you a little, the Reader's Digest version on what this device is about. Simplistically, let's say you're with AT&T and you want to trade to T-Mobile. You want to change providers. So you walk into AT&T with your phone you walk into T-Mobile with your phone and say, hey, you have a better rate. I have a phone here. I want to keep my number. and I want to keep all my data on my phone. And they say, no problem. Welcome to T-Mobile. We're going to upgrade you for joining us over at T-Mobile. Let's have the phone that you have currently, and we're going to give you a credit for that device. And we're going to give you a new device. And so what they do is they go into the back and they plug into what's called a UFED. And the manufacturer is a company called Celebrite. They're an Israeli company, and they take your phone and they plug it into this device, and it transfers all of your data into your new device. Okay? So now that you have that new device, you are on the T-Mobile network. All right. So every one of these cell towers that Doug has just explained here may be owned by at least the transmitters may be owned by T-Mobile. The cell towers owned by an independent company, and the various carriers rent the space on that cell tower. And they put up triangulation transmitters on these cell towers. So one of those companies may be, as Doug masterfully laid out here, could be T-Mobile. So just think of a flagpole with all kinds of various flags on it. You have Verizon flag, you have a AT&T flag, you have a T-Mobile flag. You may even have independent carrier flags. Just picture a bunch of flags. Those are those little devices that you see, or those flags or devices. You're going to see these, they're transmitters on that particular tower. Okay, so picture flags, but it's actually a device that's going to send your signal. Okay, it's not a flag, literally. Okay. And so when you're driving by, your phone is sending a signal to that flag. And if it's a T-Mobile flag, it hits the T-Mobile flag or device hanging on the flagpole, i.e. the cell tower. And as you pass it, that device or that capture piece of the flag is designed, it's in 3 angles. Okay. 3 angles. You want to explain that a little bit more for them, Doug? Because maybe I'm not doing the
No,
best.
you're doing great. Yeah, you're doing great.
Okay. And then keep me on the right road here. Okay. And as your signal comes into this flag, it sends it to the next T-Mobile flag on the other tower. Okay. And so what Doug was saying is sometimes you may be in a directional path that's not lined up with your signal hitting the flag on that tower that belongs to T-Mobile. Okay. So that is what a geodump does. So now, once, let's say a ICAC team goes into a house and says, hey, do you have any phones that send flags to towers? And the person goes, yes, I have this phone here, or I have this iPad here that is on the, internet, or whatever device it is. They have a box that they bring in with them that's named a UFED. And they walk in and they put that box down and they have some cords and devices. They go plug into that box. And that box now, through that line, is transmitting all the data from that phone into that box. Okay. It all leaves here, but it stays here. You can keep a copy here. But authorities can also, let's say somebody says, well, you can look at my phone, but I don't want you to take all the data off of my phone. And so an investigator is going to say, can I copy it? And if the person says yes or no, it depends on whether or not they get a warrant or not. If the person says no, then they stop everything and freeze it. And they go before a magistrate and they have to give probable cause as to why they want that data in that phone. If a person says, yeah, I don't care, then they hand them a piece of paper. It's called a consent to search. And they sign off and hand it back and they plug it in. Okay. Now, here's the interesting part. Once that data is downloaded, they can overlay that data to Doug's presentation earlier here and come up with something like this, only it's much more robust because now it's taking real time data and it's overlaying it on a map like this to all of these towers. And it's telling a story. And that's the power of the 21st century. Doug, you want to go a little bit deeper into that, or did I miss anything?
No, it was pretty good. The only thing I'd add to that is whenever I work a case, it gets harder the colder it is. Obviously, we'll just say colder, but the longer it's gone unsolved. But when I come into a case, one of the first things I always ask for is timing advance data, and it goes along with this because a lot of times I just get the Celebrate data, and then I have to map that all in individually because it's an absolute mess when I put it into my work. But I always ask for timing advance data, and timing advance data is a lot more accurate than just cell phone tower pings. It tells me, it basically maps out your entire life for me. And I always get time, and what it does is it follows your mobile device everywhere you go, and it shows exactly where you are every few minutes. That's what timing advance data does, essentially. And then what I tell investigators is I say, if you have a suspect, you always have to get the timing advance data starting a month prior to the event being the crime. Because once that crime occurs, behavior has now changed. There's an event that has now changed behavior forever, right? So, for example, that offender, that suspect, may never go back to that street again, may never go back to that community again. But if you only get that data from the crime onwards, you'll never know that. So you always have to start a month prior, and then you can map out someone's entire life. So I always get that. So for this case, for example, if I was coming in right at the beginning of this case, not knowing anything, I would have asked for that data for, at least half a dozen people. And from investigators I've worked with, that's pretty easy to get because a lot of people are persons of interest, for a lack of a better term, at that point.
Okay, thoughts from anybody want to follow up or dovetail into what Doug just said?
I just think from a psychological perspective, that's so fascinating, the idea that electronics as a kind of a roadmap of what a person does in day-to-day life will be potentially severely changed in the wake of a crime and can be compared to the person's roadmap before, which has the implication that you can almost use the signal of a dramatic change in a person's electronic footprint to point to a potential suspect. And I think that's pretty cool. I mean, isn't that the implication of that?
Yeah, exactly. And I use it for all kinds of cases when I'm trying to locate body deposition sites. You know, if you have a suspect that always goes to a specific place to hunt at a specific point in time and then stops going to that place, right? Their behavior's changed permanently. And then you can start to identify those modifications in spatial behavior exactly how you're mentioning it. Yeah.
So that where you don't go can suddenly become as important as where you do.
We do go. Exactly.
Where you no longer
exactly.
Go.
Exactly. So maybe if you have a suspect in this case, instead of taking, her road through that community as more like a cognitive corridor to get from point A to point B, now this suspect is all of a sudden taking a different road through the community, avoiding that road, right? So not only are they not going on her road, but they're also going on a different road to actively avoid that place where they used to go. But you won't know that unless you have that spatial behavior from, you need a month before, right? You need a baseline spatial behavior.
Mm.
So in your work so far with this one, Doug, and tell everybody what your channel is again so that we don't miss. I love pitching really smart people, and tell everybody your channel again.
Yeah, I'm most active on X at the Geoprofiler, but my at the Geoprofiler is also YouTube as well. I do my best on YouTube, but I'm not great at keeping up with the frequency of it. But all my other socials are the same thing, at the Geoprofilers.
Okay, everybody, did you get that? And so at the Geoprofiler, but heck, I just forgot where I was going to go. Sorry. I know what I was going to ask you but what is your assessment so far of where this thing is or has been, is, and where it potentially is headed? 3 parts.
That's a great question. How do I answer that? As I mentioned before, I don't have a theory at this point, a solid, concrete, formed theory. I will say I'm leaning more towards a single offender, and I think for what I do, until I have concrete evidence is more than one, I have to, and I'll give an example of that. Organized crime, right? Organized crime is hard to geoprofile because you don't know who's pulling the strings, right? Someone's stealing cars, that's great, but it's not their spatial behavior that's deciding where to steal cars from. It's the person that's telling them where to steal cars from.
The chef
right?
in the way.
Exactly. So you're not assessing their behavior. You're assessing what they've been told to do. So in this sense, if there is 2 offenders, who's leading the charge here? Who's telling who what to do? And that gets tough. So I just focus on a single offender until I know otherwise. So at this point, I think it's a single offender. To me, it doesn't seem overly sophisticated. I think there was some level of planning and then some level of luck. We all know that, like, an example I've used is the Jennifer Kesse case. They caught the guy on camera, but nobody can identify who that was walking on camera after they returned the vehicle, right? So there was some level of luck there. The guy you can't tell with the grainy video. I think there's been some level of luck there. I think that law enforcement have a lot more than we know. I'm not going to judge at this point whether mistakes have been made or not. I'm going to leave that out at this point. But I do think they have more information than we know. I think they've probably working through digital evidence and following leads that way. I'm not convinced on a kidnapping for ransom. And the reason for that is, at least the information that I have seen publicly, is that, and this may have been a mistake, I'm not sure how to put this, from what I've seen, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, is that on February 2nd in the morning, it was announced that it could have been an abduction kidnapping. And then on February 2nd in the evening, the first ransom came in. So was that the offender seeing an opportunity for money? Was it some random person saying, oh, people think this is a kidnapping, I'm going to throw a false ransom in here? It's tough to say because we don't know what was in that note, the email either, that identified whether they were familiar with the crime or not. But without, I guess they have it, without coming out and saying that note was definitely 100% authentic, I'm going to reserve, my judgment or on whether I think it was a kidnapping specifically or not. And I guess just to end off is that, elder abductions, there's can happen for any number of reasons. And I think it's important that, the audience knows that, elder abduction, there's cases in the US right now going through the courts, and, there's elder abductions for financial gain. There's elder abductions when it's actually well-being of the elder person. They think they're in a bad situation. They abduct them to get them away from family that they don't like. There's elder abductions for that have a sexual component. There's so many different reasons. And at this point, in this case, I don't see a clear motive without there being any definitive answer on that kidnapping ransom note. So that's long-winded, but I guess I'm just...
That's a great answer.
Roundabout way of saying that I don't see a clear motive yet with the information that's been provided publicly.
Anybody want to dovetail into that thought process?
Well, as the old dictum says, when you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth.
Who said that?
Sherlock Holmes. If you take the abduction off the table, what are you left with? It was a homicide.
Right.
And if it was a homicide, the question then becomes, if you think it's just one person, would you count as a one-person situation something like, let's say, a hired hitman? The hiring of a moron, to go in and do this for you, that kind of thing.
Right. And, elder abductions, you're looking at...
He froze again.
Yeah.
So I froze. There we go. So elder abduction, with all elder abductions, you're going to start looking at family first. And this isn't pointing any fingers at the Guthrie family. This is just what you do in an elder abduction.
Just the
family. Right. Mm-hmm. Typical family, any elder abduction, you're looking at family first, caretakers, and people in a position of trust. Those are the three main categories for elder abduction. Stranger is obviously, if once you've eliminated those three, or ideally at the same time, you're also looking into the possibility of a stranger abduction. So in this case, I would assume that law enforcement has looked into all four categories.
Well, it's true for children too.
Homicide or abduction.
When a child goes missing, the public thinks that your first thought is a stranger came and took them. They've been trafficked. They've been taken by a sex offender. The truth of the matter is that the far more likely explanation is they were taken by somebody who knew them. Custody situations, family members. Chris, you know that better than anybody from your area of expertise. It's a kind of myth that when people go missing, you immediately, should be thinking about some stranger coming and taking them for sexual reasons or whatever. Does it happen? Absolutely. But likelihood, no. And I agree with you that that's where you start.
It's something like out of 50-something thousand abductions, that only somewhere around 700 of them were classified as 70 and over, which is like 1% of all abductions with elder abduction. It's extremely rare, but it does happen. I mean, you say 70 or you say, 1%, but there's still 700 of them within a 12-month period. So, I mean, it happens. It's just not the main abduction that happens.
Right. And again, she's an odd choice for someone you would abduct for financial reasons. That is I have never been able to understand why her. She is a weird choice, because I hate to say this. I mean, again, I don't want to sound insensitive, but a criminal is thinking pragmatically in a Machiavellian kind of way. And from a pragmatic perspective, she's a risky choice for something that's supposed to be, you would take low-hanging fruit, someone that you're easily going to bring home intact and get the money and get out of Dodge. It's an odd, I mean, don't you guys all agree from a criminological perspective, the victimology is very strange for a financially motivated abduction. It smells of that being a weird cover story for something more personal of why it had to be her. And I cannot shake the idea that that's really what's going on here. Now that could be somebody with a gripe or somebody who knows her in a passing way, but I have no doubt in my mind that whoever did this knew her, and to some degree. And Doug, I don't correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you've mentioned whether you think the offender was intimately aware of her personally or just studied her. Do you think that the person knew her, or just was examining her from afar?
I think that's one of the big questions is, did he know her, or did he know the area? Which one did he know? Right? So did he know her property and her community and know of her and know how to access her and that she was vulnerable? Or did he know her on a more personal level and there was a more personal element to this crime?
So was it random or was she targeted? That's what you're saying, right? That's the question.
Exactly. And if you determine that she's vulnerable, she's a lousy choice for a kidnapping.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole point. Yeah. So then what?
Well,
I believe she's targeted either way.
The other thing about the kidnapping is, name a kidnapping that allows you to do it to pay monthly. I mean, yes, well, if you can't do it now, we'll take payments for that. That's the element to it that I just find
weird.
Or up the amount that you want from them based on how long it takes to forward the money, right?
Yeah, it was a layaway plan, 4, 6, or 8 million.
Exactly. That was absurd. I just want to comment on something you said, Doug, and I really appreciate the presentation and your point of view here. I really do respect it immensely. You're obviously very well experienced in this, but with respect to one offender, one thing that I look at, and I think my fellow panelists do this as well, is we look at probabilities, right? So we don't, if law enforcement operates on absolutes, we're not going to get very far in probably half of our cases. So we have to base everything on probabilities. And to me, and I think I think I'm speaking for John and Chris and really Gary. I'm not sure about Josh, but
let's wait to see.
Well, there's a lot of things I don't know about Josh, but I'm unsure of. But nevertheless,
you want to know?
We
so many,
and now I kind of lost my train of thought. But we think that it would be improbable for one person to carry this out. And then when you throw in the behavior of porch guy looking towards something on the street, and then the FBI focusing in that direction that he's looking at, okay, when he looks away, when he's focusing, and then you throw in the device that was in his jacket that I think most, if not all of us here, believe that is a two-way radio. So the probability of him acting alone is very, very low when you consider those factors. So and in order to have absolutes, you have to know all the facts, right? I mean, you have to know everything that law enforcement knows plus something. And so, as law enforcement, we just we can't operate that way. We would never get anywhere in like I said, half of our cases if we just looked at the absolutes. So I think that's kind of the point of view we're coming from here in analyzing this case and developing a theory based on probabilities and not absolutes.
Right. Yeah. No. Understood. Understood. And I think when I come in on a case, I always look at it completely objectively, and I go based off of the facts and the information I have. But as law enforcement, I know that you guys have to investigate all different potential theories and scenarios, and that's what I hope to help guide, if I can, on cases I'm brought into. I guess with a case like this, I'm not saying that there isn't the possibility of two offenders. I think I've worked too many cases of younger, more capable, less vulnerable women being abducted that by one individual, that the possibility of it being one individual is definitely there.
Yeah, I don't think you can take that off the table. It is possible, but in my opinion, it's not probable.
Right.
And in fact, I think it's highly unlikely.
And,
just my opinion. Yeah.
And we love your opinion, by the way, in everything you're saying, Doug. Seriously. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
The whole reason you're here tonight is to add this other dynamic to this panel to say, have you guys thought about this? And vice versa. I mean, we know that where you're coming from 1,000%. So I hope you don't feel like,
Oh, I like what Doug does. Doug won't let you assume anything.
And just because, Las Vegas is winning the Stanley Cup, off the Canadian game, has nothing to do with this conversation tonight as well.
How many of those players are Canadian?
Exactly.
Who won the gold medal?
Go ahead, Gary. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say that what I like about Doug's thinking is that he won't make a leap logically. He says, I'm stuck here because I cannot advance because it would be an assumption. And I think that's very smart.
Yeah.
Right. I think very data driven. I like that. And the other thing is I have to say that I strongly believe, and I, call it a gut instinct, call it experience. I don't know. But my strong sense is that somebody in a cabal is ratting to law enforcement, that somebody has been identified and is throwing everybody else under the bus in exchange for immunity or something else. And because I think all you need is one putz in the story that finally says, I don't want to go to jail the rest of my life, that kind of thing, and is going to be very happy to lead them to the center of the web. Fine, I'll rip the curtain away. This is who told me to do it. Now save my butt, that kind of thing. And that makes me very interested in some of these people that have been looked at and then sort of quietly vanished from the newspaper, that kind of thing, like the guy in Hawthorne and people like that. I mean, and I wonder, just to poll everyone, am I the only one who thinks this?
No.
You mean Cal Doofus?
That would be, think of all the different 187s we've worked, and inevitably, if there's more than one suspect, somebody makes the decision. There's one parachute on this plane, and I'm the one jumping. And they do that. They make I used to call them Dollar General Judas Iscariots. They will sell anybody out if they think that they're going to get a little less time.
I really think that may be going on. What do you think, Bob? I'm curious.
Well, no, I agree with what you said, Gary. Yeah, your theory is spot on, in my opinion. And just to be clear, Doug, I understand your job is significantly different from law enforcement, and your job is to support law enforcement, and therefore you almost have to operate under the theory of absolutes and not probabilities and guess. So just to be clear on the statements, the comments I made earlier, Yeah. So you have to be that way, and we have to be this way in order to get anywhere.
Chris,
Yeah,
the
we
reason
complement each other.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
actually sit around a table and we collect scattershot theories. And nobody who suggests something is turned down because detectives understand you have to operate through very narrow parameters, whereas we just put everything on the table. And I mean, we've Chris and Bob and I have done it where you sit with a bunch of detectives and all you do is throw theories around.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You
Chris,
know,
do you think they've got their eyes on someone?
say what?
Do you agree that they probably found someone who's going to rat everybody else out, or are looking at someone else connected to the web?
Well, I think we can all agree that affidavit in California is the most bizarre scenario in this whole thing.
Garrett Kalila.
When he
Let me
showed
jump
up,
feet first into the biggest crime in North America.
the fact that he sends 2 text messages to the reporting parties and says, "Oh, by the way, I'm waiting for the Bitcoin."
There are no coincidences in law enforcement.
I mean, the question,
just
if he
aren't.
hadn't asked the question, I'd be like, this guy's a fruitcake. Let's move on. Nothing to see here. But then, when you read the affidavit, you go, wait a minute, this guy's, who's we? Number one, that's in the affidavit. So he's talking for more than one, and he's a single individual. And then secondarily, it's like, and he called somebody in the family, but we're not telling you because we're the FBI. Okay. And we've all played that game. I mean, we called it that night. We were like, oh, man, they're twisting this guy behind the house. It's like, well, what else do you know, buddy?
He's going to be in court in 2 weeks.
Well, yeah. And so that's a really good, interesting point, Gary, because let's pay attention to the timing on if things start moving over the next couple of weeks. To Bob's point earlier. Go ahead, Josh.
When Bob said earlier that he couldn't speak for me, the only reason he said that was because I told him that we didn't go to the moon, and then I told him that I believe in Bigfoot, and now he's taking it out on me. So, but I do believe we went to the moon. I do believe in Bigfoot, though. I agree that I agree that her abduction makes no sense, and a lot of times, you guys know this better than anybody, that when a crime occurs, most of the time crimes don't go off, perfectly. And sometimes things go awry, and sometimes, we're, a bank robbery, you go in, hey, we're not shooting anybody. Then somebody gets shot, or we're not taking anybody. And then somebody gets taken. Somebody veers off the path that everybody, and all it takes is one person to, and if there were more than one person involved, who knows what could have gone wrong, to where instead of it just being, like just for instance, a wrench attack, then it ends up turning into, a kidnapping homicide, or,
I mean, for the record, third, right? This was not a wrench attack.
I agree with that. I'm just saying that things go awry.
I don't know where that concept ever came from.
Well, it was Chris. They brought it on to replace the Epstein theory that they were offering early.
Okay.
I muted
For heaven's sake,
First of all, let's look at the elements of a wrench attack. Element number one: victim has money, Bitcoin. Okay. Element number two: bad guy breaks into home to obtain victim's money, i.e. Bitcoin. Okay. Element number three: they execute that crime through force, intimidation, fear, whatever they're going to use, cutting fingers off, or whatever the the game of the day is. Okay. Now let's look at this case. Element number one: mom has no Bitcoin. Okay. 84 years old, in her bed, sleeping. no Bitcoin account. So what do the suspects do? They create a Bitcoin account. Complete opposite element to a wrench attack. Complete opposite. Okay. It's like, I mean, common sense has to play a game here.
I don't want to be hung out to dry for this. It wasn't my theory. I just brought it up. I regret.
I know, but I love you to death. You know that.
It was Gary's theory, not mine.
But at the same time, this is what's confusing for the public, because the public's going, oh yeah, this could be a wrench attack. Well, okay, you go into a bank where there's money. That's called a bank robbery. Okay. You go in and you say, give me your money. Okay. That is a modified wrench attack. Okay. Because the money is in the bank.
Yeah. There's it varies. There's not just one sort of wrench attack. I mean,
right. So you transfer the currency mechanism. That's what Bitcoin is. Okay. If you go into a bank and say, give me the Bitcoin, and they say, I don't have any Bitcoin. We're a bank. We have cash. Okay. You don't say, well, okay, well, we'll just set up an account and I'll have somebody mail it here or transfer it into the bank and then I'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I leave the bank.
Would you write that down on the note first?
And for the audience that are not familiar with what a wrench attack is basically the theory that no matter the safeguards that you have, like online through digital wallets or Bitcoin or whatever it is, that all that can be bypassed if you just have a wrench and you threaten to beat somebody or cut off their fingers. All of that security goes away. That's a wrench attack.
You know where the terminology came from?
Yeah, it came from a cartoon, but I don't remember the cartoon.
It was a $5 wrench that you purchase, and you beat the crap out of them with the wrench.
Right.
And say, give me your money.
Right.
Okay. That's an old school,
Yeah, or they take somebody to an ATM and say, hey, you have a gun or something, and you say, hey, pull out all your money, and and you hold a gun to their back or something.
Right. The digital world rotated it into the 21st century from the old wrench attack.
Right.
And it literally meant you buy a $5 wrench and you beat the crap out of Louis down at the corner for his $6 in his wallet.
Okay. Right.
But you have to know he's got $6. That's the key.
Yeah, nothing a little couldn't fix.
Go ahead. What are you saying, Doug?
I was going to say, and there are cases of elder abductions where they've been abducted, taken to an ATM to get money out. I don't think that's what this is, but there are cases of that.
Exactly.
Yes,
and that's called a kidnapping for ransom.
Right.
Okay.
There's only been about 72 wrench attacks worldwide on record.
Right. And I think it got prominence because of the two teenagers who were captured, by the way. Let's keep that in mind. These two teenagers who, committed the wrench attack, they didn't get any money and they got arrested. Okay? So, now how that rolls over into an 84-year-old woman, I mean, I think, just common sense would tell us, well, we don't want to cross those two swords. It's almost like working a homicide series where, you see one guy thrown in a lake and you see the other guy set on fire. Okay. Then the next question is, okay, did he change his MO? And is it the same person? Or to your point earlier, Doug, right? And all of us here that have worked this kind of stuff, you go, well, wait a minute, maybe it's two different people. Okay. And if it is, let's keep our, let's keep our focus on the ball here and let's stay in the house with Miss Guthrie. Right now, everything is pointing into that house. And the victimology of this whole thing is, why would somebody select this 84-year-old woman? It's not because she has $8 million in Bitcoin. Okay. No, the Bitcoin is an after effect, to your thought earlier. Was it put out and the suspects or somebody was sitting back? I interviewed a guy in 1992. He was on death row, Wesley Allen Dodd. He was a serial child killer at Walla Walla State Prison. I went up there, I interviewed him, I sat down with him, and he told me something very interesting. one of the things he said was, while I was watching the press conferences, meanwhile, he had a 5-year-old little boy in the back bedroom. And just before he murdered this child and eventually hung him in the closet, and then came back multiple times to molest his body. This guy was horrendous. He was world renowned.
The worst of the worst.
He was the worst of the worst.
And he said if you let him out, first thing he would do is go find a kid.
Yep. Absolutely. And long story short,
right.
I asked him, I said, Wesley, tell me about what you were doing. And he goes, well, I was watching the news. I said, really? And what did you see? He says, well, I saw the police chief come on, and he got up there and he said, yeah, we're searching for the kid over here, here, and here. You know what that guy ended up doing? And this is for the audience. He took that little boy to McDonald's at the other end of town, the opposite end of the city, because he knew the police were so focused on one end of the city. Okay. And he bought him, quote, a Happy Meal. Okay. Just anybody who wants to look up Wesley Allen Dodd, take a shot at it. I've actually got videos of the interview I did with him, some of them, just pieces of it, on my channel.
I've seen those. They're fascinating, but they're very hard to listen to. And Dr. Gary, isn't he written in your book as well? Or you write about him, don't you?
I think he's in the new. He's not specifically written up in category 22, but he would be a 22, which is as bad as it gets. But I think we may have him in the Alphabet of Evil section in the back. But
I remember him being
in the next book. Well, this is why I'm interviewing. One of the reasons I'm interviewing Chris.
Yeah, I've seen those interviews because they're horrific.
So where I was going with this was this idea that says, we complicate it so much that's why, Doug, I think your work is fascinating. And guys like you, I mean, I would sit down and listen to you all day long and say, okay, what do you think about this? Okay. And the great thing about it is, even though we play on two different hockey teams, okay, we still would high five each other at the end of the game and go, hey, we both scored. Let's go get something to eat. Okay. And that's what's really cool about these kind of panels and about having, various guests on, because I think the audience realizes this is how it's done. And this is what's taking place on a task force. You would call a guy like Doug, you call a guy like Dr. Gary, you call a guy like Bob, and the reason I love Josh here is because he doesn't have our background. And he all of a sudden comes up and goes, well, wait a minute. What did you guys, what do you mean by that? Did you think of this?
I like to ask questions.
You like to ask really good questions. You're a smart dude, you are. And I love that personally. I love this collaborative effort that says, hey, what's going on here? Right? Because that's really important. Even Doug, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but we had Marin's brother on the last time. Okay. He was hooked up, right? You know the story. Well, they found some, the ex-husband.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know the story. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about, but
well, I'll tell you later. Okay. It's another story. I smelt that fish before it got out of the water. Okay. And I told the other person, hey, there's something wrong here. And behind the scenes. And sure enough, I read it in the news. It was like, whoa, right on. I still got it. Okay. That said, that's where I think this case is. And I think it's important that the public, because we have a responsibility here on YouTube, on social media, on all this other stuff, to Nancy Guthrie. We have a responsibility to weigh in as professionals to say, hey, here's our opinion. It may be right, it may be wrong, but this has been an experience level that we can bring to the set, meaning the public, and say, hey, think about this. and you do good work. John is an amazing human being, even though he had to say, that he spent many a night suffering because of me. He was my direct boss at one point in our careers. That guy at the other end over there, he suffered just because he had to see me, with Bob. Okay, let's go through some of these questions here, and then we'll call it a short night. What do you guys think?
Oh, Chris, let me just add one thing.
Please, John.
The most dreaded words I ever heard from you were, "Got a minute?"
Exactly.
Shut
Okay.
the door.
Firefighters carry people all the time in their gear. If she were unconscious, it could easily be done, wouldn't it? I'm not a true believer in the carrier out of the house theory. I'm more of the drag her out of the house injured theory. But New Jersey, Elaine, and thank you so much for always being with us. And we met you at CrimeCon. You're amazing.
Oh, cool.
Question is, what about potential off-road driving exits to avoid cameras? Doug, that one's, I think, in your lane.
Yeah, potentially. It helps if you have a suspect and you can kind of map out their awareness space. Generally speaking, after a crime is committed, an offender likes to get back somewhere safe, right? Somewhere safe. It's like a fugitive. A fugitive always goes home eventually, right? So they like to get back somewhere safe, and they like to go somewhere they know. We go where we know where we go. So are they going to take off-road routes they've never gone on before? I doubt it. But if it's something they're familiar with, then sure.
Okay. So, one of the questions I don't think we've asked is, if this is a homicide and a body dump, what is your assessment of that?
It would have been done that night.
That very day, same day?
Yeah, before 4 a.m. I mean, statistically.
I agree.
Yeah, for a number of reasons. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the longer you keep somebody, the higher risk it is, right?
That's exactly the logic of why it makes no sense.
Yeah, that's why the ransom doesn't make
a kidnapping, because the longer you keep someone, but I have to say, Chris, just as a general point, that I think the stuff that you're looking at, Doug, is probably the closest to what is realistically going to solve this case. I have a lot less confidence in the DNA stuff in this story, and I think it's going to be all about tech. It's going to bring down whoever did this. Do you guys have that same sense that ultimately it's going to be the tech stuff, the car, the getting picked up on cameras, cell phone stuff, internet searches, things like that, as opposed to
a rat?
That's what I.
Yeah,
and the rat and the snitch.
Yeah,
that's going to be the whole case, especially if there's no body.
Somebody knows this person who just so happened to not be home at that time and came back, out of breath and dirty or something. Something. Somebody knows who. They have an idea.
Yeah, and I think Doug's onto something with this slide here.
Yeah.
And look at all the gas stations on that one route out there. If a vehicle's, which I think we can all come to a consensus and agreement, there's a vehicle involved in this somewhere in this case. Because it's a lot easier to find a car than it is than a body. Okay. But if you look at the slide he's put together here, and the most logical, we'll explain this one more time for the audience, Doug, if you wouldn't mind, real fast.
Yeah, the fastest route in and out of that specific subdivision, which is Oracle Road 7 or number 77. It's north and south into Tucson, north into rural areas, and it's unlikely that he's going deep. get to Oracle Road to get out quickly and directly. And so, I mean, that's where I would suggest, based on the information I have right now, of course, but that's where I would suggest to focus your digital evidence is along that route and expand outward from there.
I love the accidental metaphor of your tech glitching when you were explaining that, because the take home point is no matter how much you know about technology, it will never do what you think it's going to do. And that's exactly the problem these people have. It doesn't matter how smart they are. You get busted because of these things that don't go in the system the way they're supposed to go. And that's what I'm finding so fascinating about your the way you think is very much the way early neuroscientists thought about the brain. To understand how it works, you have to see where it goes wrong, where it doesn't work, and then you can understand what it's supposed to do at its best. And it has that similar quality of learning from absences and changes and accidents and things that go, which I think is very smart. And don't you guys see how clever that is? I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, really smart. And because I think you're 100% right. But so it sounds like we're all in agreement. The tech is going to be central to this. And I think even legally, it's going to be very important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Micah says he doesn't think the family's involved, but John, would you put Undercover into Tucson music scene just to see if something pops up?
That's actually an interesting question. I can answer that because I had brothers in the music scene in Los Angeles. And if somebody suddenly showed up, everybody in the music scene would know that this person has just shown up. And in the music scene, in that area, you tend to have a history. So if some stranger shows up and is suddenly going to start asking questions, my guess would be that would be the most certain way to shut down any information in the music scene. Probably the best way to access it would be for your investigators to ask if they've spoken with people within the music scene. If they've heard anything, let us know. But dropping a UC, an undercover in there, I think would have the exact opposite. It would freeze the information.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris, you're in a music scene. If some stranger suddenly showed up, wouldn't and it's within musicians and then all the other support people. It's a closed community. So nobody's, hey there, don't think for a minute, I'm a cop. And you would have to have been there probably for quite a while. So it's innovative thinking, but I think probably the best way you would get that information is finding somebody within the music scene that will be your spy, that will be your undercover informant, not a cop, but somebody who's there and willing to listen for you.
Yeah, great point. If I was in Tucson, I'd be suspicious of everybody right now in that scene. So look to your left, look to your right, look up, look down. That could be your guy, whoever that is.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, if it's a CI or somebody that's been twisted, and we call it a package. You give them a number.
And you shake a leg and do the hokey pokey.
You shake a leg and do the hokey pokey. And great point. So let's see here. Considering a route, why would the perp take Nancy Guthrie's route when leaving? She wasn't driving. Yeah, great question.
Well, the answer is it's not Nancy Guthrie's route. It's just the optimal route.
Yeah, and I think
that's the easy answer.
They're referring to Annie's map.
I think this is Annie's map. Yeah, referring to Annie's map as well.
Right.
Doug.
Least effort principle, right? Oh,
yep.
They both follow it. Yeah.
I am thinking they took Nancy back door to a car and went back desert roads to Mexico. Just my opinion. This was a messaging to our government. Okay, there you go. Pitch black roads that cross the border. You know, if they took her across the road to the border, then they would have seen something by now down there. That would have been a very easy play for the feds. This is tearing me up inside. For the Guthries, Perp has a new active cell number. He's alive. Was sent on behalf of Brown County authorities. Added to online proof. I'm sending. Okay, thank you. If the perp didn't carry a phone but carried a two-way radio only, can investigators travel that or trace that? Well, it's an FM. It's a very small frequency, and if it's a walkie-talkie, and that person got on it, actually, all the RVers could hear him too. At 2 o'clock in the morning. You know.
Well, you know, if it was connected to a repeater somewhere, then they might be able to track that, depending on the type of equipment. But when it's a line of sight two-way radio, I don't know of any way to track that at all.
No digital trail.
Right.
Past tense.
Yes.
And new respect for law enforcement. My job is usually a one and done. Ellie, you gather, compile, and protect while solving vague puzzles, while learning conundrum, patience. Yep. Thank you so much for your kindness in that statement and for that contribution. Can geofence track faking of personal devices, i.e. move to another location to make it seem as if a victim was there, but they weren't? Can it ghost somebody into a different location?
Just moving. There's so many ways to track an individual. You know, your mobile device, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. Just moving if somebody can try and fabricate a story with their cell phone just by moving it, right? Whether they take that device to a location or whether they turn off their device for a certain amount of time while they're in a location, they can do their best to hide or fabricate their movements and locations, but in the end, it's just a big piece of the puzzle you got to put together. Can you fake being in a location? Well, as long as you take your device to that location, but then you were in that location. So the more data out there available to the investigator, the more they have to work with. So they're just giving the investigator more information, really.
Great answer. Hey, Chris and Guest, can you geofence satellite phones or Nextel walkie-talkie style phones?
It's a good question.
Can that be done, Doug?
I don't know. Satellite phones. I haven't had a case where I've had to use either one of them. Now, that being said, most of our phones now will hook up to satellite in emergency situations. And for example, if you have no service and you're in the middle of the forest, a lot of our cell phones, I know mine does, just automatically hooks up to satellite for simple texting. So
well,
it would depend on what kind of phone.
If it has GPS capabilities, you probably would be able to.
Yeah, I would say for the satellite phone, yes, but for the walkie-talkie hand radio, I would say no.
Yeah. Cool. Are there data specialists who search Reddit, YouTube, Facebook? The answer is yes. There's actually things that can be used.
That would fall under SOCMINT, which is social media intelligence. It's just a sub branch of OSINT, open source intelligence.
Has M. Lauer crossed anyone's thoughts? He hasn't crossed mine, but thank you for that comment. Well, I'll tell you what, this has been an amazing program. I've had you for 2 hours and 40 minutes. Holy cow, time flies. Let's go around the room. Any final thoughts? Doug, we'll start with you. Tell everybody again about your social media. And I want to thank you so much, for coming here this evening. It's been a fascinating evening with you. And would you come back if we shoot you another invite as we go along?
I would absolutely come back, and it's been pleasure's been all mine, and I enjoy the conversation with each and every one of you. It's been fascinating. I would love to come back, and all my socials, you can find them at GeoProfiler. You can interact with me there. Send me questions if you want there. I do my best to answer those. And the group I work with is at irisinvestigativestrategies.com. And we can be found there as well if you have any cases you want to bring forward to us. But thank you, gentlemen, and thanks everybody that's been watching.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks, Doug. That was good info.
Very well.
Excellent information.
Good stuff. John, final words?
Just, I've got to say, an absolutely fascinating, almost 3 hours. Doug brought some really some prescient observations, and I learned a lot. Some great questions from your subscribers. I want to thank the mods. You'll find my books at the bottom of the page. They're on Amazon. And for those who've wondered where Andy is, Andy just walked by my golden retriever. So he's been laying at my feet. And so I just, Chris, as always, it's a delight to be here. And I will send you the cover, which I was blessed and fortunate that Chris and Dr. Gary gave me wonderful cover quotes. And unlike the ransom, I will pay on the installment plan for those coats. So,
Yeah.
Again, delight to be here. And so thank you.
Thank you. Josh, tell everybody last words.
Yeah. Well, Doug, it was absolutely incredible getting to listen to you. You sound like a master at your craft. And, I always appreciate learning new stuff along with everybody else on the panel. You guys are all so very intelligent. Thank you for letting me hang out with you and ask you guys questions and, pitch into the conversation. You can find me on the lab where you will see Dr. Gary and I, who frequently do call-in shows. Bob joins sometimes, and so does Chris and John as well. And, there's some other kind of stuff on there as well under my videos, some documentary type style shows as well. So if you want to go over there and sub up, I would appreciate it. And Chris, thank you for having me as always.
Absolutely. Bobby?
Yeah, I'll echo what everybody has said about Doug's presentation tonight. Excellent. I learned a lot from it, and appreciate your thoughts as well on the case. It really added to the discussion for sure. Let's see, Josh, did you say you're going to the moon or
Yeah.
you want to go to the moon? Okay.
I want to go.
Okay.
He's going with Bigfoot.
They may have them up in PEI up there. We'll see.
I sent Josh a Bigfoot meme. You need to deploy that at some point.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Yeah. So thanks for having me, Chris, Karen, the mods, as usual. Awesome job. Always fun to be here. Always enjoy the discussion and the interaction with everybody. And just a reminder to all of the viewers and listeners, be patient with this case. Like I've said all along, they're working suspects, and this is coming down at some point. Don't know when, but it's coming down. They're working suspects. It is not a cold case. So hang in there and keep your wits about you, and we're gonna make some hay out of this case here. I would think pretty soon.
Perfect. Dr. Gary, final words.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Thank you to everybody who continues to have a look at my work and read The New Evil and everything else. I just think that Doug has really got his finger right on the pulse of where I think this case has to go and probably is going behind the scenes, that it's technology that's going to crack this. I really think that, or at least it's going to make a huge contribution to cracking it. I think this work is going to become more and more important in solving crimes as we move into this, more and more through this era of what I call new evil, right? Because it's all about technology changing crime. I also think that as we get more and more in the weeds about this technology and DNA and all that, which is what's going to happen if this ever winds up in a courtroom, we should try to remember that at the center of this is a person, that Nancy Guthrie was a human being at the center of this entire thing, and it's easy to miss that. Today, as Chris pointed out on his page, would have been the 25th birthday of Kaylee Gonzalez. I actually shot a note to Kaylee's mom earlier. And Chris, you did a wonderful tribute, and we think of all the victims, but that's a case that ultimately I think got solved partly because of technology. Like this, DNA, so forth, came together and I think caught a very monstrous predator, potential, future predator that would have gone on and continued to be a predator. So I think, I just really want to drive home for the audience how important this work is, but let's also remember at the heart of this to always think about the victims. I know this is a very victim-focused show, Chris, so I thought it'd be good to take a moment and remember that.
Yes, and if everybody pulls their phone out, they can scan this. Murder has a name.
Yeah.
And that's why we do this program.
Yeah. Do you see the Big Crime Con, Chris? Did you see good?
Yeah,
Steve?
they were so busy. Steve and Chrissy, they're coming on the program Wednesday night. So you'll see them here Wednesday night. We're going to talk about this. But they were going 1,000 miles an hour. And, having the privilege, to do God's work, it is about the victims. It's definitely not about YouTube.
Yeah, it's always about the victims.
It's all, and each one of us here, every one of us here has been involved in the process some way or another. But we can never forget what the reality is.
Exactly.
And Summer Wells, we're going to do a show Sunday night about Summer Wells. It's the anniversary coming up. That little girl is still missing in Tennessee, Hawkins County, Tennessee. I got an email yesterday Friday from Tennessee Bureau of Investigations. It's the same word salad, unfortunately, from day one. But there's a new sheriff, and hopefully things will kick off. I interviewed Fred Hale recently. It was recorded. The gal Ziggy, or his wife, also recorded it. So I'm going to let them play it if they need to. It's completely up to them. And so that case is, in my mind, I've still not forgotten it. And also Rachel Glass got a phone call from none other than Senator Kelly.
You're kidding.
Nope.
Well,
wait, who got a call?
We did a program on Rachel Glass, who it's a triple homicide out of Tucson. And it was during the Nancy Guthrie thing. Her case has been 16 years old, or 16 years cold. Okay. And we asked the question, has the senator called you? And she goes, no, we haven't gotten any question or any calls from any senator. So we suggested they do a press conference in front of Senator Kelly's office.
I love it.
And see if he responds. And lo and behold, he responded.
Surprise.
So we'll see where that's going to go. But that was because of this chat. All of us together collectively on behalf of the victims said, look, let's just set it aside. If you're going to do it for one, unfortunately, she is also a constituent. You need to weigh in on a triple homicide. And to his credit, all politics aside, he did the right thing.
That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kudos to Senator Kelly for following up. Yeah.
For balancing out, right? Just do the right thing. That's all we ask. So let's not forget why we're all here and why we do this. This is such an important platform for all of us. And, so we want to thank all, 8,000 plus that were here this evening. We're grateful to each and every one of you as well. And let's keep pressing forward and continue to do the right thing. We have a tradition here, Doug. We go to Hawaii at the end. And there's an old saying in Hawaii that says, "Biakamai," which means pay attention and be alert to all the things around you. So we always tell our audience, Biakamai. And thank you guys again for being here this evening. And thank you, mods. And by the way, we got a new mod, Josh, you want to tell us a little bit about Holly's been with the lab for quite some time. And, I know you had been looking for a new mod, and I had mentioned Holly. She's fantastic. She's on top of it. Every time that she's there, she just puts all the information out, keeps the chat in line and moving. So you guys are really lucky to have her. You can't steal her completely, but you can. I won't.
I often think, Josh, that she asserts a maternal,
no question,
quality in the right.
Yeah,
she's basically my main mod. She just does fantastic stuff.
We're not going to steal her. We're just going to ask her to.
Yeah.
So anyway, but welcome to the team, and thank you again, all of our mods, and thank you everyone in the chat for keeping it classy. So aloha. We'll see you on the next one.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going